Welcome to the Rest of Us. My name is Noah Hutton, and I'm your host. Each week, I'll have a new entrepreneur on to talk about their story, their struggles, and their lessons learned. This week, I'm really excited to talk to Lexi Bates. She is the owner of Two Sisters Coffee Truck in Virginia. I actually found Lexi and her coffee truck through TikTok, which is really cool. And I thought that she would be a perfect guest for the podcast. After talking with her, it turns out that we have actually a very, very similar story about how we started our businesses and why we started our businesses. So I'm really excited to share that story with you. So without further ado, here is my interview with Lexi Bates. All right, Lexi Bates, welcome to the Rest of Us podcast.
Hi, Noah. Thank you for having me.
Great. So Lexi, I found her on TikTok. I found her coffee truck that she has with her sister. And before I go any further, I'll just kind of let you introduce yourself, and then we can get right into it.
Perfect. So my name is Lexi, and I own a coffee truck with my sister called Two Sisters Coffee Company, and we're based out of Virginia. So we've been doing this full time since June of 2021, and it's been a really great experience overall, and I'm super excited to share about it.
Perfect. Yeah, I am a coffee lover, and obviously that was what drew me to it. But after talking to Lexi a little bit, it sounds like we have very, very similar stories coming out of college. So I'm really excited to talk about that. So let's just kind of get right into it and kind of talk about where your story starts with the business and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school at James Madison University in Virginia, and I studied communications, PR, and nonprofit studies. And so I had applied for a million jobs leading up to graduation, which was May of 2020. And I did not get a single job. And it was super, super frustrating and disheartening because you feel like you worked so hard these 4 years. And granted, it was like the start of COVID. So I really did not go easy on myself, but it was just a really tough time to graduate from college, high school, any time in your life. It was hard for everybody in different ways, but, it was in that moment when I was unemployed. I was living with my parents, which I still do, but I was living with my parents, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like a dream of mine my entire life was to own a small business, but I was like, yeah, I'll do it when I'm 40 or when I'm retired or when I have money. And I remember I was literally sitting in this kitchen and I was thinking to myself, there's literally no better time than now. I have the only person I'm responsible for at this point in my life is myself. And it's realistic to start a small business at any point in your life. But right now for me, it made the most sense because heaven forbid it failed. It was all on me and nobody else would be affected by this decision. And so I was like, I'm going to go for it. And a coffee shop was an absolute dream of mine. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but it also just financially wasn't very realistic. And especially amidst the pandemic, I was like, I don't know how to do this. And it was just a huge risk to take at that time. So that's when a coffee truck came to mind, and I convinced my sister, who was still in high school, to do it with me. So she would work before school and then go to school, and then I would close up for the day. We usually close around 1 o'clock. So it worked out really well. But yeah, so that's what brought me to starting a coffee truck. So it's been a blast. I had never worked in coffee before, so everything about it was completely new.
Yeah. So you never really worked. Did you have any restaurant experience or anything, or was it just kind of completely brand new to you?
So my entire life, I've worked random jobs, and all of them have been super fun, but all of them have also been customer service oriented. So I felt really confident in my abilities to work with customers and different people within the business, so an accountant, a wholesaler. I felt totally comfortable working with those relationships, but working in specialty coffee, I had never done before. I just knew I loved coffee and going to coffee shops. So my brother at the time was living in Portland, Oregon, and I knew anywhere in the PNW has incredible coffee and they know what they're doing. And so I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this the right way. And so I took a specialty coffee crash course for 2 days in Portland, Oregon through Water Avenue Coffee Shop. I don't remember the exact name of their course in school, but it was the best experience ever. It's almost like wine tasting. There's always something more you can be learning. It's so complex in different regions, and I'm still learning so much more about coffee, but it was so fun to dive right into specialty coffee and learn how to make legit coffee the right way. So it was an absolute blast.
Definitely. Yeah. I have kind of going back to the college thing. I kind of had that same idea of I kind of want to do a small business. I had a little clothing brand in college, which went nowhere, but I was I kind of want to do this again. And my idea was okay, I'll get a full-time job after college, get a full-time salary and then like kind of do it on the side and do a little bit of the here and there. And then like maybe when I'm 30, it'll work out, or maybe when I'm 25, it'll work out. But yeah, it really is no better time to start than like right now, because there's so many different ways to do that. I've like this is my third interview this week. And the past two, we've kind of talked about different ways of going about it. So like for me, like I'm doing video creation. So we've talked about like, you can, be an assistant on a set, or you can just be like, do one part of the thing of the job and not necessarily do it all yourself. And like for you, like you can go the small business route in so many different ways. You could go the truck route, but you can also like roast your own coffee. You could, design mugs. You could do like, there's so many different ways to do a small business. But why did you, obviously coffee was kind of a passion of yours, but why did you go the truck route, and how did you kind of figure that out?
So initially I assumed that a truck would be cheaper than a shop, and it definitely is overall, but starting a food truck is not cheap like I had anticipated. I expected it to be like no money at all. And I was obviously very wrong, especially considering like I had never done it before. So it was a pretty ignorant thought of mine, but it all worked out. But honestly, the truck route, because it was during the pandemic, so I was like, this is safe and I can stay open. Like nobody can shut my doors because it's just like a serving window. So I knew that I would be able to stay open no matter what, most likely. But also I just thought it was so different because I had never heard of a coffee truck. And once I Googled it, like I saw plenty, and there were super cool ones all over the country, but it's not really too much of a thing in Virginia or the East Coast really, as much as it is like in the West Coast. So I thought it'd be something different that I could bring to my area. And food trucks in general have been booming since the pandemic. Like everywhere you look, there's another food truck, which is so cool. But yeah, it just kind of made the most sense at the time. And I felt like coffee would be something different, and I'm not a good cook or baker or anything like that. So I was like, I can do coffee. Let's figure it out. And so it's worked out really well, thankfully. And it's been a blast.
That's really cool. So how did you find the truck, and like what condition was it in when you got it? Because I feel like to make it a food truck, you have to like retrofit it and add all these different things, and get like electricity and water and all these kind of things. So what did that whole process look like?
So when I decided I wanted to do this, I just kind of assumed that a truck would be a better fit, but I wish I had looked more into trailers, because people always knock on trailers, but I think that they're just a really great option as well as, and also more affordable, less maintenance. The only thing is like, I didn't have a truck to pull it. It just didn't really make sense for me. So I went the truck route, and I would Google and put on Facebook and Instagram, because I had all the time in the world because I was unemployed, which was a huge advantage that my parents were letting me live here. And so I would be on Facebook Marketplace, I think there was a website called usedvending.com, and I would just type in like antique coffee trucks or vintage coffee trucks, because I really wanted one that was different and smaller than like a huge UPS truck. I was like, I'm not trying to drive this huge truck just for coffee. So I wanted something smaller and something just that looked different. And so initially I had planned on getting like a big FedEx truck, but it was just too big and it just didn't feel right. And so then one day on Facebook Marketplace, I found the truck that we currently have, and it was in Ohio. And I was like, oh my gosh, like loved the truck. I saw so much potential in it. Like it was in good condition considering it's a 57. So I was like, this looks great. Like it's not what I wanted style wise, but I knew that could be changed. Like I loved the truck itself. And so we drove up to Ohio. I looked at it, and I remember I was like so nervous, but I knew like that's the truck I wanted. And so we had to have it towed down. So like that was an additional expense. But overall, it's been really great to us. And like the body of it was fine, but it needed like a new engine, a new transmission.
Oh, wow.
And then like building it out was a whole nother process. Me, my dad, and my sister took it on ourselves. And so we very, very thankful for my dad and all of his help, but we worked nearly every day on it because we had never done this before. And so it was all brand new. And I always say, if we did it again, we could do it 10 times faster because we'd know the order, like how to do it. But when you do it for the first time, it's all just so brand new. So yeah, the first thing was replacing the engine transmission, and then following the Department of Health guidelines. That was a huge thing. So I like memorized that whole pamphlet. And then like water tank and electricity. So like one of the biggest shocks, I think, when it came to like electricity and plumbing and all that stuff was how much electricity coffee equipment takes.
Oh, really?
I had no idea, but because I never worked in coffee before, but like an espresso machine, a drip coffee, and all those grinders going at once, like we have the biggest generator known to mankind, I'm pretty sure. And we cannot put a heater, like anything else on it, or it'll trip the breaker. So it works out. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, it was just a lot of learning and trial and error and following directions. So yeah, I always say if we did it again, we could do it 10 times faster, but I don't think I'll be doing it again.
Yeah. So when you were, because you never worked in coffee before, how did you go about, like, you have like the engine fixed, you have everything done, you maybe have the electric wired up in the water. How did you go about like finding the equipment and learning how to use that? Because like you can, like, I've tried to make like coffee out of like a Breville like machine or whatever, like all these type of machines, but it never like turns out quite right. So how did you kind of go about that whole process of like trial and error and learning different things to get like the perfect cup that you would want to serve somebody for money?
Yeah, that's a great question. So thankfully when I was in Portland, it was like a one-on-one class. So it was just me and an instructor, and we pulled shots all day, every day for 2 days straight. And they like told me like adjust the grind size, adjust the grams. It's really like a science experiment almost. Like you have to make sure you have the exact amount in the puck or in the portafilter right. And then when you pull it, you want to pull within like 30 seconds. And it's just like trial and error truly. But they also had like a huge, at the end of the second day, they did an hour of just Q&A. And so I asked them like, what equipment's best? What should I avoid? Like every question, how do I choose a wholesaler? All of those questions. And that was also a huge help for me. And so then when I came back to Virginia and was researching everything, I was talking to a potential wholesaler for our beans, and they told me about this company in Pennsylvania called Brewtex. And they were like a one-stop shop for all of my equipment. And so I reached out to them and I told them like, hey, this is what I want based off of the equipment that the people in Portland told me about. And they had everything that I wanted, and they could buy it all for me right there and then deliver it to where I needed it, and free installation. So it was like a no-brainer, and they were really, really great to work with. And also our wholesaler, whichever wholesaler like people choose, I always tell them like, there's so many good ones in the US. Like you really very, very rarely have anything to worry about as long as they're like a legit roaster that serves great coffee. Like I talked to so many, and all of them were so great. So it made the decision really tough, but we ended up choosing like a really small roaster in Virginia that was super local. And that was a wonderful decision. They've been so good to us, and they came to like train us one more time before we opened, just to make sure we had everything right and tell us more about their beans. And overall, that's been really great too. So lots of decisions, but like also it all kind of just falls into place the more you talk to more people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing about entrepreneurship is like having those connections and like talking to more people, because that's like part of the reason I started this podcast is like I just wanted to talk to more entrepreneurs, because like I had a kind of part of the reason I started, I had a conversation with one of my friends who's an interior designer. And like I could have talked for 5 hours with her. Like we just went back and forth with like just talking about business. And so I was like, I need to do this more often, because it is the most enjoyable part of entrepreneurship is learning from other people. And so it kind of sounds like you have that same mindset a little bit with like talking to the wholesalers and like learning and stuff like that. With the coffee truck, how did you, or I guess like was your sister always on board? Or was that kind of something you had to sell her on? And then like, how did you go about kind of like developing the business with her, and like, what was that partnership like?
I just kind of was, I wish I remembered this more clearly or like journaled about it, because it's such a faint memory for some reason. But I think I was literally just like, Lauren, would you want to do this with me? Like work with me? And she was like, sure. And then it just kind of stuck and we did it together. But since she was still in school, I was kind of like the leader of it all. Like I initiated conversations and stuff. And then she was like, I don't want to say the silent partner, but like she was a help in a lot of other ways. So like behind the scenes stuff, and like just really great at making sure like I was on track and doing things right. So she's been really great through all of this, but I wish I remembered that conversation more. It just kind of like happened like that. And we've always gotten along, but it's also, she was 17 when we opened and I was 23, I think. So there's also like kind of an age difference, which makes it more fun in my opinion. I think it's always fun to work with people older or younger, whatever than you. So that's been cool. And just like also a different perspective, because her age group is very different than somebody in their mid 20s. So that's been a huge asset. But I wish I remembered that more. I just remember being like, Lauren, let's do this. And she was like, okay. And I kind of like,
happened.
yeah, exactly. It's funny. It just worked out like that.
It's really cool. So the partnership between you and her, what, like, kind of when we were talking, you were saying like you're more of kind of the front facing and she's kind of on the back end, like learning. Did she have any interest in coffee before, or was it like you were both learning all of this at the same time and kind of figuring it out as you go?
So no, she had no interest in like a small business. She had no interest in any of this. I kind of convinced her like, hey, this will be fun. And she didn't even drink coffee before this. So it was cool to like have her grow into like loving coffee now and like watching that develop. But no, yeah, she wasn't interested in any of this, but she knew when she graduated. So like lots of her high school experience was during COVID. 1 or 2 years of it. So she had a very, very different experience than I did. And I think after that, like she knew college right after high school was not for her and not something that she was interested in pursuing at the time. And so I think that also kind of helped her make her decision to work with me, because she knew like she wanted to go straight into the workforce and she didn't know what that would look like, but she was kind of like willing to try anything new. And so that worked out really well too, because she knew that school wasn't for her at that time.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of becoming more and more common. Even like when I was in college, I studied film in college, and like I was like, do I really want to finish this? Because like some of the classes, like I also studied marketing, and that was more where the difficulty was, like the math related classes and the sales classes and all this kind of stuff was like, I could just go and like take my camera and start getting like clients and stuff like that. Like, do I want to go into college? And I think or finish college, and I did, but it was like that mindset, I think, is a lot more common now, because there are like more employers not requiring degrees, and the like working in small business is so attractive to a lot of people. I think it's like romanticized a little bit, like having your own small business, because there's definitely a lot of struggles with it, and we can kind of get into that more. But just the idea of working for yourself, having your own schedule, is so attractive to a lot of people, and I love it. But so you said you open like really early in the morning and you end around 1. Was that kind of something you just kind of worked out? Like, how did you determine, how did you determine your schedule of work? Also, how did you figure out where to actually put your truck? Because you're not operating out of your house or anything. Like you're at some place to have your truck. So how did you kind of figure out the actual like customer facing business side of it? Because you have the truck now, it's built out, you have your sister, you have the equipment, like actually opening it to people. Like, what was that like?
Yeah. So I always give this piece of advice for anybody that tells me they want to open a coffee truck. I've learned since opening that it's always easier to start small and add, or like have like a small menu or limited hours and add to it, than it is to have like be open 12 hours a day and take away from that. It's always easier to add on for customers to see you're adding on than it is for you to take something away. So I knew from the start we wanted to start with limited hours, because it was also just going to be me and my sister. And so we were open 6 days a week, and that was way too much, because on the 7th day I was getting ready for everything for the rest of the week. So it was just like no time off. And so I changed it to where we're open 5 days a week, and 7 to 1, Tuesday through Friday, Saturdays 8 to 12. And it sounds like not many hours, but when it's just us two and there's so much to do behind the scenes, like we're working way more than full time still. It's just not possible right now. And I'm the only one that drives the truck, which is also huge, because I can't hire someone to go drive the truck, because I'm just very weird about that, and it's very, very hard to drive. So that's a whole nother thing. But it's just me that drives it, and it's just us that work every day, which is nice, because we also know like we can rely on each other. And when we grow, I would definitely love to have more employees, but right now I'm like really content with it just being us two. But then when it came to like finding out where to park it, I kind of made a bullet point list of what things mattered the most to me, and like the first one being visibility. So could people see us from the road? And then parking. Like I wanted there to be ample parking, because I know that when there's not parking, like that's such a turnoff, because usually when people are getting coffee, they're in a rush. And so like how many people are late to work every day because they're getting coffee? So I wanted to make sure it was like super accessible. And foot traffic was another one that I wanted, but I knew like I may not be able to find all 3 of those. And so I like literally would drive around where we live and look all the time, like where would be a good spot, because I had no idea at the time. And so finally I reached out. So in high school, I worked at this ice cream shop that was next to this like country market, and they like have this huge building next to a lake, and they have kayaks and sandwiches and like all this really cool stuff. And I reached out to them. I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I blah, blah, blah. They remembered me, which was really cool. And, I was like, I want to see if I can park my coffee truck here. I completely understand if not, like that whole thing. And they were super, super generous in letting me park there. So we park there 5 days a week, and they have a bathroom, which is nice. They're off of a highway, so it's like super visible. That's like thousands of cars a day. And they have tons of parking. It's just like a huge gravel lot. So, and they have foot traffic, if I didn't say that already. So I like really, really lucked out in that they had all three, but most important to me was like visibility and good parking. Because once you make a name for yourself, you can create foot traffic, but it's also just convenient that we're parked here because people can also go inside and grab lunch or whatever else they need. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for a few different things.
Yeah, definitely. I know when I like travel, like I'm going like to different real estate offices because I like do real estate media. And if I'm going to anywhere, like when I looked for like lunch or like where to stop, I always look for a parking lot because I don't want to deal with street parking and like all this kind of stuff. And like, especially when I'm like in Indianapolis, like downtown, like I don't want to deal with any of that. So I think the parking lot thing was really smart because that's like a huge, like some people, if you're used to it, it's fine. But if you're not, if you're in a new area, or like people maybe travel to go like see you, like it's so hard to find parking. So I think that was a really smart decision there.
Thank you.
Let's kind of transition into talking about a couple of like the struggles kind of starting your business. So like obviously like when you post on TikTok and like post on these things, you're obviously posting the best of the day. Like maybe sometimes you might post like, oh, we had a really bad day and this is like a kind of a learning moment, but most of the time you're posting like the really good stuff. What are some of the things that people maybe don't see on social media and when they do it, and what were some of the struggles early on and maybe even struggles now, and how are you kind of like learning and overcoming those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I grew up in a family that everybody started a small business. Like we just all kind of have that personality.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. So I'm grateful that they kind of like could pave the way and give me like the reality of it. So I always saw like the long hours, and like some months were good, some months were not. Like it just really depended. But I think going through it yourself is a very different experience than watching someone else. And honestly, quite humbling because you really learn a lot. And there's some months where you're like on cloud nine, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm unstoppable. Like we're killing it, X, Y, and Z. And then the next month, like you're falling apart. You're like, why did I ever do this? Like it's really high highs and really low lows in my experience. For some reason, like the past 2 Augusts that we've been open, and I need to get out of this mindset, but the past 2 Augusts we've been open have been awful months. Like not necessarily financially, but just the generator will go wrong. Then the truck has broken down, just so many different things in that month that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm fearful of this August already. But it's interesting because some days just go so smooth. You're like, this is why I did this. I love this job. And then other days you're like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? So yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around the financial aspect of it too. People come up to me a million times a day and they're like, oh my gosh, like this, like people are very kind and saying like, it was such a great idea, but like, oh my gosh, you have no overhead, like no cost to running a food truck. And I'm like, that is so wrong. Like just to open our doors, it's already like at least $100 between payroll, between gas for the generator, gas for the truck. Like there's so many different moving parts where I wish that was the case, but it's definitely not. Like there's always an expense to opening a business, whether it's in your house or it's a truck or it's a shop, whatever it is, there's always expenses involved. And then I think another misconception is that people, I think, look at small businesses and think, oh, they know what they're doing. But I'm here to say like 90% of us don't. Like we're faking it till we make it, because every day something new comes up and you learn something new too, which is also like, I think the beauty in it is that every day I feel like I'm challenging myself and learning something new and learning how to grow my business and learning what works and what doesn't work. So the past 2 years have been crazy in that sense. I feel like from the first week we opened to now, like we've changed so much, but that's just kind of how it goes. Like you learn what works and what doesn't, and you adapt to it. So yeah, there's quite a few misconceptions, I think, but overall, it's kind of been cool to like break those down. And yeah, so it's been interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I one thing I didn't really realize when I kind of got out of college, because like in college, like even like the first, 18 to 22 years of your life, like everything is so structured and like everybody's like, they're showing you what to do. Like in college, all the teachers had the assignment, the professors had the assignment, graduation is even kind of structured. Like all of that is structured. And then once you get out into the real world and you get like maybe a corporate job or you do your own small business, you realize really quickly that everybody is just making up while they go. Like there's no like path. Like I'll look up like, how do I market my company, or how do I do this, or how do I do this thing, or like, how do I do this like tax thing or payroll thing or all this stuff. And you're like, oh, somebody's done this before. There's a guide out there. I can just follow it step by step and be done. No one knows what they're doing. There's like, it's just, everybody's doing it a different way. There's no set way to do things. Like taxes or accounting's different. Like even like, like I didn't realize one thing I kind of was weird is like, oh, accounting is just kind of like, you have to do it a certain way, but there's so many other ways to do it. Like there's no set way. And you think like, I took accounting classes in college and I was like, oh, like when I get to do my own, I'll know what I'm doing because I did this. And really fast, I was like, oh, like everybody can structure this so differently. Like it's just nobody really knows what they're doing. And like marketing and all this kind of stuff, like everybody's just doing it their own way and making it up as they go. You kind of talked about how you kind of felt that way too, but like what were some of the things that you had to kind of learn as a business owner that you didn't really think would be an issue, and like how are you kind of approaching those kind of things?
Well, first of all, that's so true. Like once you get into like graduate from high school or college, like it's just like a free for all. You're like, everybody's kind of winging it. So it's good to hear you say that too, because that's how I feel. Like everybody is kind of lost, but that's okay because we all are. So especially I feel like in your 20s, I mean, people probably say that their whole life, but I feel like in your 20s, it's very relatable. So yeah, I appreciate that. But where were we? What was your last question?
Just like approaching like these things that you maybe have thought are like more structured, but you were like, you have to find your own way to do these. Like accounting is like, for me was that thing of like I thought it would be like a structured thing. And I have QuickBooks and all this stuff, but it's still like, you can do it a bunch of different ways and kind of make it up as you go, as long as it's all accounted for. Yeah. That was kind of my example of that.
Yeah, that's a great example. Very also just a great example, because accounting for me has been the most stressful part. And I've like had to use so many accountants. And I would say with that, like the power of asking people and asking for help, because there's always like, you cannot do it all on your own. It's absolutely impossible to be able to do the accounting, the marketing, like everything by yourself. And like, you can try, but you're not going to do all of this well. You'll do them all mediocre. So for me, it was giving up my like trying to figure out the accounting. I'm like, I'm not even going to try and figure this out, because one, I'll do it wrong. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And two, people spend 5-6 years, however many years in college to do this and do this for a living. Like I trust them to do this correctly and legally. So hiring an accountant was the best decision I've ever made. And I wish I had hired one from the very start. I was a few months in when I made the decision, and it's necessary. I don't care what anybody says, unless you've done it before, like you kind of have to do it right and without stress when tax season comes along. Yep. So, that example really resonates with me. But yeah, the power of asking people. So like, if you want merchandise done, ask somebody who does this for a living, like offer to pay them for their time to sit down and explain differences in you. And most likely people aren't going to ask for money in exchange for an hour conversation for them to potentially sell you a product. But like, just for an example, asking people, and people are all experts in different things. So like reach out to them and don't be afraid to, because they most likely are going to be super excited to talk about it. I've learned to ask so many different people in so many different industries about like marketing or taxes or social media or whatever that may be. And that's been a really cool experience.
Definitely. Yeah. I also was like a few months in, and then I realized like my books were getting to a point where I was like, I need to hire somebody. And I'm so glad I did, because he like spent just an hour like looking at it, and he's like, okay, we got to restructure this whole thing. Like you have like two different bank accounts going here, and like you're doubling up in your sales. So it looks like you're making 8,000, but you only made 4. Like it was just, everything was so wrong. So I definitely relate to that. I've heard this from everybody, big and small, like hire an accountant. It's not as expensive as you think it'll be, but it also will save you a ton of money.
Exactly.
Like it will, like, yeah, you're going to pay, I paid like $160 the first time. I don't know what my tax bill will be this time, but like you're saving so much money, and they know like all the ins and outs, and It's going to be way more expensive if you get like audited or something and you have to like figure that out. So just hire them to eat that cost. It's going to be fine in the future. Because if you're successful, like that cost will be minimal at some point.
Exactly.
And yeah, I also like, I relate to that in the sense that like, I love when people reach out to me. It doesn't happen as often as I would like, but when people reach out to me and they're like, I want to talk about real estate photography, or I want to talk about this, like, I love that. And I'm like, yes, let's go for an hour. Like the episode that just came out this week is with a guy named Cole Bushy. He's a real estate photographer, and we got connected like in a kind of funny way. And we just talked for like 2.5 hours the first time we met. And it was just like, I love just like talking. And I guarantee people that are experts in their field love talking too. So like, if you like reach out to a merchandise person and they're like, they just want to talk, or like you reach out to, you're like, hey, I thought about kind of doing this, but I don't really know. They will go for an hour and a half just on it because they love talking about it. And like, same for you. Like if you, like somebody says, I want to open a coffee truck, like I'm sure you would go for an hour or 2 hours on like all the different things that you've learned, and like, because you love doing it. Exactly. So that's a really great point, or great tip is like, even if you're like, let's say you're thinking about starting a business, reach out to the local person in your area that does the same thing and just ask them like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What should I know? And it'll be great. And they probably won't charge you for your time. Like maybe if it's an accountant or a lawyer, maybe, but like generally speaking, they won't, because they just like love helping people. I always say like on this podcast, people want to help people. And that's really true for entrepreneurs. Like they always, because they know exactly what the struggles were in that time. So they really want to help out. And especially if it's local, even more. Local people want to help local people for sure.
100%. And I would also say that like when you're reaching out to somebody, it helps so much when like I've learned, if I'm asking somebody questions, ask them specific questions, because when a few people from TikTok have approached me and they're like, how do you start a coffee truck? I'm like, well, that's a loaded question. Like that's super hard to answer in like one Instagram DM. But when somebody says like, hey, what size water tank, what espresso machine, like specific questions, I'm like, all right, here are the answers, like not a problem. But when you say like, hey, how did you start this whole business? That's like a super hard question for people to answer. So I think having specific questions are way more approachable and easier to answer.
Yes, definitely. Like I've gone to small business advisors and stuff, and I was like, well, I'm having trouble like, communicating my brand. Well, that's like a really loaded question of like, okay, what is your brand? How are you going to communicate it? Who's your audience? All this stuff. And it's like, actually what you need is like, how I'm targeting the RV community, and I need to communicate my services to the RV community. Like that is a specific question that you can talk about. So like if you're reaching out to whoever, like find 3 issues that you're trying to solve and then have those be the issues. And then maybe like set up another meeting in the future to talk about more. But like those top level things, you need to kind of narrow down, and like they'll kind of solve themselves. I found that a lot of issues kind of solve themselves once you start addressing like little things each time. Like you kind of get there, because it's a long-term journey. Like small business ownership and everything is so long-term. I've learned that the hard way so many times of like, I really thought I'd be in this place by then because I thought I had this figured out, but I really don't. And I'm still like trying to grow my business. So it's a very much a long-term journey. And I don't think enough people realize that when they start out.
Yes. And it flies by.
Yes. Yes, definitely. So now let's kind of transition into your business and how you're looking at growing your business. So I know like obviously a brick and mortar was your dream in the beginning, but it's way too expensive, which totally makes sense. Real estate is so expensive. And then there's all these added costs about that. So how are you looking about like growth? Are you like in a good place right now, or are you kind of like looking at different ways to kind of increase the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be honest, every day for me changes in terms of like what I see in the next few years for us. Every day I'm like, wait, I think I want to go this route, or I think I want to go this route, which I honestly kind of love. Like I love that I have the freedom to change my mind as many times as I want, and there's no harm in that. So I've kind of taken the pressure off myself to like have a 5-year plan, because that for me is very, very hard. Like it's kind of one day at a time, see where this goes. And I'll be honest, like I don't probably think that having a coffee truck, what I'm doing right now, is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Like I think life is, in my opinion, too short to do the exact same thing forever. And some people do really well at it, and I applaud them for it. But I think I would love to stay within this industry. And I think as of right now, I'd really be interested in going down the education route. So potentially like helping other people start coffee trucks. So I've really grown fond of that. So like I've had phone calls with people and like helping them get theirs up and off the ground. And I've been working on a guide. So that's been a lot of fun. January and February are our slow months. So we're not open all the time based on the weather. So I've really had a blast getting the word out there kind of about that. It's still a work in progress, but it's something that I'm really interested in doing because I wish coffee trucks aren't super popular, I'd say. I mean, they're popular, but like they're not as popular as say a barbecue food truck. And so there's very, very limited resources out there to help people start their own. And so I really am excited and interested to get into that endeavor. So I'll still be running the coffee truck and opening and having the fun with that. But I wish that when I was opening, I had had a mentor that could help me walk through the steps and tell me what they did wrong and what they did differently. So I hope to be that guide for other people. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's in store for that. I still don't think I want a coffee shop. I don't know, maybe one day. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Who knows what's in store. But as of today, the education route is what I'm really interested in. And we'll see where that takes us.
Have you thought about doing something similar to the course you like took out in Oregon, or are you thinking more like how to start your own like coffee related, food truck related business? Is that kind of the route you're going?
I think the business route. I love coffee, but I don't think necessarily teaching specialty coffee would be my forte. I don't think I'm experienced enough for that. And even like owning a food truck, I'm not super experienced. Like I'm in year 2, like I'm still learning a lot. But when it comes to building out a food truck, I feel like I have so many different tips. And when I started writing the guide, like I just could not stop typing. So I'm like, I wish someone had told me this, this, and this. And I wish I hadn't done this and done this. And yeah, so I'm super excited about that. I know I'm more passionate about like the business and marketing and social aspect of running a coffee truck than I am the specialty coffee. Like I love specialty coffee and making it and serving it and like serving a cup of coffee that I'm proud of, but it's not necessarily what I want to teach others.
Definitely. Have you thought about kind of in the future, like, would that be something that you may hire out to like people that are more passionate about the coffee and then you're kind of doing more managerial tasks? Because I've also thought about that too. Like for me, I definitely got really burnt out on the creation side of like what I was doing because I got to a point where I maybe didn't have a client to do the project. So I was like, I don't want to just do a project to do a project, which I need to be doing because I need to keep creating and stuff like that. But I was like, I really enjoy like this type of thing and the business side of it and like doing the, like getting the client and meeting with the client as opposed to actually like going out and doing the video work. That's kind of something I've been battling with like lately. So have you thought about kind of the actual day-to-day kind of hiring it out and then like going more of like, I'm going to manage Two Sisters Coffee Co. into a brand and like kind of expand it that way?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question that I haven't thought too much into. I think that's actually a really great idea that I never really considered. So potentially, I don't know, you just kind of struck a thought. So I don't know. I think that'd be really cool if it was kind of like a one-stop shop, but like I had this role, somebody else had this role, and we could help you get your coffee truck up and running. So potentially, I don't know. Yeah. That was a really great idea and question. So we'll see.
Maybe, yeah. Because I could definitely see like Two Sisters like coffee on the shelves of the thing, but also like Two Sisters Coffee as like a YouTube channel, or Two Sisters Coffee as like a course business or something like that. Like I could see that kind of growing past it because it does like you said, like you're more interested in the business side as opposed to the coffee side. And there are people that like all they would love to do is make espresso all day. Like they want to try it and they want to like try the different beans and like the notes and all this stuff. Like they love that. So maybe if you found somebody like that, they can grow the actual like taste of the business, and then you can kind of grow the business.
Exactly. And I also think that most people, in my experience, that go into like a coffee truck usually already know quite a bit about coffee. I feel like I was kind of an exception, and it was like kind of odd that I didn't when I went into this venture. So I feel like most people usually have that under their belt, but it definitely wouldn't be something I'm opposed to because I think that would also be a blast. So we'll see. For
sure. So that kind of brings me back to something I wanted to ask you about, like the actual coffee. So you said you weren't necessarily into coffee a lot. So when you were choosing like the actual coffee to serve, how did that process look? Were you just tasting a ton of beans like all day to kind of figure out what you liked? Or were you kind of like figuring out like, okay, this one's like a little more fruity, this one's more nutty, like we're going to do both in case somebody likes different? Like how did you figure out the taste of the business, I guess?
Yeah. That part was very difficult for me because I'm like, okay, these all taste good. Like I can tell the difference between regions and stuff, but that definitely was like an acquired taste trying to figure all that out. And I was like literally just making cups of coffee in my parents' kitchen all day, every day, trying to taste the differences and see what was best. But I would say overall, when it came to it, like I said before, every wholesaler that I talked to overall was like incredible. Like they had great beans, great selections, great shipping offerings, like just so many different things that I loved. So it kind of came down to like how local I wanted to go to buy our beans from, and then customer service. Like that is something that was really important to me, and being able to have a relationship with our wholesaler. And the people that I ended up going with, I had no idea that they even had a wholesale program at the time until somebody DM'd me on Instagram, and I was like, oh, hey, like I love their coffee in college. Like I know that they make great, like roast great coffee, and let's chat. And so I chatted, and they were just so kind. And it just feels also so good to work with a small business. Like there's like the intelligentsia, like the big ones, and they're all like, there's nothing wrong with them. But I wanted to work with someone who like, I know that our business is impacting their business. And it's just really, what's the word?
Fulfilling, maybe?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You took it. Yep. That's it. It is. It's very fulfilling knowing that that's who we're giving our business to. So yeah, I'm so grateful that they messaged me, because I had talked to probably 20 other ones and they just worked out. So
Yeah. I've definitely noticed when I'm kind of looking at who I'm going to use as vendors or product people, or like when I'm buying things, I always like, even though like I love online shopping and like buying online, I still love that in-person experience. So like when I bought I bought this microphone and the mic stand and the headphones, I was like, I could just order them online. Like I know exactly what I want, but I'd rather go into a shop and have them kind of tell me like, I'm thinking about doing this. What should you recommend? And like I'm lucky to like live near Sweetwater, which is like a big like music store and music company. And so I just like got to go in and like buy this stuff, and like that was really nice. So I find that, and I'm that same way with all of the things that I use. So like my accountant, I could have just like gone with a QuickBooks advisor or something, but I wanted to go into an office and talk to an accountant and say like, this is what I want to do, and like have that interaction. And same with like, I don't know, just meetings with different clients. Like there are clients where I'll like cold call them and I'll say like, hey, are you thinking about this? But I'd rather go into an office with like a realtor or with a video client and say like, let's talk in person and kind of talk about this, because I just enjoy that way more. So it sounds like you were kind of the same when you were thinking about like what vendors you use for your products.
yeah, absolutely. Like I loved having a face to our purchase. And I'm sure like with your microphone, like you saw, like you had an interaction with someone, and now you take that home, and like it just is overall a better feeling about where you're putting your money towards.
Yeah.
Putting your money towards. So yeah, anytime you can work with a small business, I mean, it's inevitable in some ways, but anytime we can, and obviously you too, like it's always so much more fulfilling.
It really is. Yeah, definitely. So, we talked about it a little bit, but it sounded like when I was talking to you before, you were like really passionate about kind of like the misconceptions around owning a small business. So I know you talked a little bit about that, but are there any other misconceptions that you've like noticed that kind of like maybe you're more passionate about? Like whenever I hear people say like, for me, it's real estate media. And whenever I see a TikTok of like, you can make $60,000 a year, no problem, just doing real estate media. I'm like, that's not how that works. Like I'm still grinding and calling realtors and doing all this stuff. So like, are there any things that you've like seen people say and you're like, I know that's not how that works, and I hate that they're saying it that way?
Yes, absolutely. So as you were saying earlier, like TikTok, Instagram, all those things are just a highlight reel. Like I post all these really cool videos and I love making them and creating them, but like it's all of the good parts of our day, good parts of our business, the fun, exciting parts, which is why I love making them, is because it's like all the positive things that have came out of running a coffee truck, but it is not the everyday by any means. And I think that's a huge misconception. Like the amount of comments, and people mean no harm by any means. Like I don't take offense to it, but people all the time comment like, oh my gosh, like you're living my dream. And that's so humbling that like I am like living so many people's dreams, and I'm so grateful for that. But like I'm not posting the fact that I'm living at home with my parents. Not that that's a bad thing, but like most people at almost 25, their goal is to move out. And like financially right now, I'm trying to pay off the truck. And like there's just different sacrifices you make to make your small business work. And that is one of them. So like living at home with my parents, driving an older car, just things like that, like first world problems, honestly, but like just things that people don't see that like I work every Saturday, March through December, and like going to weddings, things like that. Like you really have to be smart about when you take your time off, because Saturdays are our busiest day and I can't afford to close every Saturday. So there's just different sacrifices you take to make it work that you don't post on Instagram and TikTok.
100%.
Yeah. So I think that's one of them. Like you really are pushed out of your comfort zone, and yeah. So I'll leave it at that. But
yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like for me, it's kind of difficult when I still have friends that are in college, and then also my brother and sister are in college, and my parents are both educators. So like break time, like when they have like winter break or summer break, or like they have a snow day today because it's snowing like crazy here. And like, it's like so hard to kind of communicate. Like I still have to work. I don't get a day off. I don't get breaks. Like they're like, oh, we're going to go up to Michigan and see your grandparents. I'm like, but I have 3 podcasts to edit, 2 videos to make, and then I'm going to try to reach out to this client. Like I still have all this work to do. And I'm sure it's like the same for you. You're like, I'm planning this new, like when you're doing your merch, maybe that was a ton of time. Like you're like, I can't just like go to out to eat with friends, or I can't travel on this trip. Like I have work. And so I think that's something that people that have a 9-to-5, and like, even I think it's less like with people that have a 9-to-5, because like they know that like they're still working like up until Christmas, like Christmas Day, or they're working up until Thanksgiving. But generally, like people that may be used to more time off because of their position, like they don't really understand, like I'm working 12 hours a day every day, and I'm still trying to like find like these little breaks of like, I want to watch a movie because I enjoy movies, or I want to like go to lunch with my friends, or like I'm planning a week-long trip to Vegas in June. And like, that's like something that's like, I'm really excited about, but I'm also really nervous about, because that is a week of me not making money. So like, I think that's something that is really, people don't see, because it's such a grind. And when you work for yourself, every single day is an opportunity to make money. And every day you don't work is a day you're not making money.
Exactly.
You're not like,
that is, you very, very well said, because I think like you get no paid time off. And I knew that going into this, but when you actually experience it, once again, it's very, very different. Like I see all my friends are like, yeah, I just took like a week off, or I'm working from home this week. So like I go on midday walks. I'm like, that's awesome. But like we just like live very different lives in that sense. And so, like you said, if you're not working that day, like you're not making money, and it's a lot of pressure, because I still have bills to pay, and I still have like the loan to pay off. And there's just like so many moving parts to it. And, like for instance, in the winter, this week, for example, we're open 3 days, which is not our normal 5, but it's because it was freezing and snowing and raining and all that stuff. But people are like, oh my gosh, a 3-day work week. That's amazing. And I'm like, if I had a 3-day work week, I would know what to do with myself. Like I worked every single day, like doing so many other things, but like, just because I'm not posting those on TikTok or Instagram doesn't mean it's not happening. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, like you were saying, that you just don't realize until you experience. Like there's always something to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like for me, when Christmas came around, the only day I've taken off since starting my business, and like there's probably days where I just didn't do any work because I was like not feeling it, not motivated or whatever. But like the only day I legitimately like tried to take off was Christmas Day. But like by like 4:00 the next day, I was like, I need to work. I need to like edit, or I need to like look at small businesses. Or I was like starting the podcast at the time. So I was like, I need to be like looking for people to, I think that's like when I found you, but I was like, I need to like look for people to like have on the podcast. Like I just couldn't stop, because I was like, if I don't work, I'm not getting towards the point where I can move out, and where I can like buy a new car, and when I can buy a house, and like all those things. Like it's not just about making money. It's like about like every day that you work is like closer to that freedom of like what maybe like people with a 9-to-5, like, oh yeah, I just bought my first house, or I bought my apartment, or like I'm going on a vacation. Like for us and for entrepreneurs is like every single day you're working towards that. And that's not to say that they're not, but it's just a little bit different, like money wise, especially like the finance side of it is like, you're just every little bit you're trying to make money, and then hopefully grow your business to where you're making more money to where you can pay yourself a salary. And I know you mentioned payroll. So like, how have you looked at like paying yourself and like covering expenses, but also paying yourself? Because like for me, I'm not paying myself yet because I just haven't made enough money, but I know that's like something that maybe some people prioritize in the start, or some people may like forego to kind of make the business more money. So how did you look at that?
Another great question. So that's been tricky because I can't justify really paying myself much because I'm living, like I don't have any expenses. So in my mind, I'm like, now's my time to like grind it out, to like pay off all of these the loan that I have for this truck, get it out of the way. And then I can experience the, like nice, like not a nice salary, but like paying myself. Like, I don't know what that's like still. So like personal expenses I have, I put on my personal credit card, and at the end of the month, say it's like 500 or 1,000, whatever it is, I take from the business account. And so it's not a tax write-off, but it's just considered a draw as an LLC. So I take that money to pay off myself, to pay off my credit card. So like just personal expenses that like I can't really avoid, like gas for my car, whatever that looks like. So I don't pay myself yet. I pay my sister. So she's the one person on payroll, and I pay her, and because the loan is under my name, so she's kind of like an employee of mine, even though she does a lot of the other work as well. But I pay her, and then I'm hoping by the end of the year, that is my goal, we'll have been 2.5 years in, that I will start paying myself. But it's just, I'd rather kind of, this is dramatic, suffer now and then reap the benefits later, now that I'm living at home, because I know if I started paying myself now and took a few extra years to pay off the loan, I'd be kicking myself if I ever had kids or whatever, other financial responsibilities. So just trying to, you know, get all the debt out of the way, and then I'll hopefully pay myself.
Yeah, I like that mindset. I still am working on that. Like one thing that I'm living at home still too, but I don't know what it is, and I'm still trying to figure out like where my money is going. But like I still feel like I have normal expenses, even though like I'm not necessarily buying that much food, or I'm not like paying for rent. And I'm not, and I think like holiday season might have taken a little bit of that because I bought like gifts for people, but like I'm still kind of trying to figure out like I should be saving a lot more than I am. And like some of it went into camera gear and all this stuff, but I think that's such a weird like thing. Money is such a weird thing with like businesses and like paying yourself. And then the other thing like that you've obviously figured out because you're paying your sister is like, how do I even pay myself? Like, can I just do a bank transfer? Like do it? Like that's such a weird thing. It's like, it makes no sense. Cause like I had my money in the beginning, I had my money tied up in like my personal bank, and then I was just doing a business bank, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, am I doing a draw? Am I paying myself? Am I paying the business? Like, it's such a weird thing to figure out. And that's why I like got with an accountant. Cause I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but it feels wrong, and I might get in trouble for it. So I need to figure this out.
So are you an LLC as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, that's what we are. And like, I've had a good experience being an LLC. To be honest with you, like I wish I'd met with an accountant before I established what kind of business we were going to be, so I could at least know the differences between them. But LLC seems to be the most common for food trucks, and it's been good. Yeah,
so. LLC made sense for me too. But yeah, I was like, I just knew that because I had started a business before and I didn't make any money with that business, but I still like got paid, and all that money that I got paid from like sales went into my personal account. And then when I went to do taxes, it was like, I don't know what I made and what I owe and like all this stuff. So like 100%, like I think if there's anything you take away from this podcast, because it's been great, it's been a great podcast, but like talk with an accountant, because and a lot of them have a free like consultation thing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing we talked about, like talking to business owners. Even if you're going to more of an official meeting, a lot of them have free consultation meetings. And that's so nice to just like, if you're trying out different vendors, like you're not sure where you want to go, or like you just want to get advice, and like you can get free advice just from these things. It's like really great to like just go out all these free meetings, because you can ask all the questions you want in an hour, and then make a way more educated decision. Because even like I trust a lot of information on the internet because I think I've grown up that way and kind of understand it. But there are still things when it comes to money and business, I'm like, I need to talk to a licensed person, because I still need to like have that security of like their answer is what I'm going to go off of.
Exactly. And also like going on the internet is a great resource for like broad information. But in general, when it comes to taxes and like money and anything financial, even when it comes down to like states and counties, it varies so much. So like you might be reading someone's answer that's from Texas or California or wherever, and their laws and regulations and tax rules are very, very different than here in Virginia. So like talking to someone that knows about your business, like where it's at, everything about it is so important.
Oh, 100% for sure. So closing out the podcast, I know I talked to you about this a little bit. I want to do some action items for the listeners with your business. So what type of action items do you have to tell our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had three, one of which was to hire an accountant. So we've kind of covered that base, but then the other two were two things. So one, social media is your best friend. And like people always say this, but like you can't, in my opinion, post too much. Like it's a free resource and you can reach millions of people for $0. So take advantage of it and know that people always say like be consistent, but it's so true. Like be consistent when in posting because for instance, it's so relevant because last night this past year is when our TikTok has really grown and like we've gotten so much business and like met so many cool people from all over the world from it. So I think it's such a cool platform for that reason. But our TikTok has grown so much this year. And I was like, I wonder how many TikToks I posted this year. And I was talking to my brother and he's like, I don't know, like 100. I posted 1,000 TikToks this year.
Oh my gosh.
Which was like, I really don't know how. I think it's because I enjoy it, so it doesn't feel like it was that many. My brother's like, that's ridiculous. But I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, it was worth it because I saw like I reaped the benefits of like gaining a bigger following, having more customers, more outreach. Like there's so many good things that have come from that have like changed the direction of our business. And I'm so grateful for that. But like posting those TikToks cost me $0. So I like can't emphasize that enough. Like there's Pinterest, there's so many different platforms you can use. Find which one you enjoy the most so that being on that platform doesn't seem like a chore because you're going to be spending a lot of time on it if you want to grow your audience on the internet. And so for me, that's TikTok. Like I love making them. And so yeah, just know that it's your best friend.
For sure.
And then second one I would say is to treat your customers like royalty. And this doesn't mean like putting up with disrespect or anything like that, but your customers are the ones that are paying your bills. And so throw in a free drink or a free whatever for your customer that comes every day. Like treat them like they are paying your bills because they are. Yeah. And they're the ones that are helping your business survive and supporting you. And without them, like you wouldn't be in business. So like, I don't think you can say thank you or show your gratitude towards them enough. So every time they come or every time you see them, like thank them and remember their name and ask them how their dog Lucy's doing, like all those little things that mean a lot. And I think anybody can make a great cup of coffee. Like it's possible to learn that, but not everybody can make a customer feel really great about themselves and like really make them feel appreciated. So I think that it goes such a long way in showing your appreciation for them. And they could have chosen any other place to get coffee, but they chose yours and make it clear to them how much that means to you.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree. And like the way that I've thought about it is like I did a podcast on Saturday that's going to come out, I think like late February, but we talked about like, if it's low lift, do it. Like if it's like for you, like if it's an extra shot of espresso or if it's like this little thing, like just little things that don't take any more of your time and maybe like not as much of your money, just do it. Like if it's because it's going to make their day better. Like for me, like if I'm going to go out to a house or whatever, I'm shooting with a client and like one more reel for them or one more TikTok is not that much work for me. Just shoot it. Like it's not like, it's not that big a deal. And like it is an add-on, like whether you're trying to sell yourself, like for me, it's services. So I'm trying to sell my services or you're trying to make somebody's day better. Like it's just, it's so easy. If it's low lift for you, just do it. Don't always worry about the money. Like don't be like, oh, well that would be it's $20. I didn't get paid. Like whatever. Just like, if you do that like 100 times, maybe that's an issue. But like if you do it like every once in a while, if you see like it'll benefit. That's the other thing for me. Like I'm so obsessed with the quality of the work I put out. And so like if I sell like somebody a package of like 20 photos, but I see 25 will be better for the house, like I'm going to shoot 25. Like, so like, it's just all these little things of like, just do it to make the thing better. Don't do it because of the money, because that will just make it so much worse. Especially in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I agree. I think one of the best parts of owning small business is that you have the freedom to do that. Like there's no boss to yell at you. Like there's nobody else there to stop you. So like, if you remember it was that customer's birthday yesterday, give them like that regular's customer, give them a free drink because they'll remember that forever. Like it means a lot to people and it makes you feel good too. So it's a win-win.
Oh, 100%. Well, Lexi, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been fantastic. My last question for you is, what is your favorite coffee drink? And what is the favorite thing that you've served to somebody?
Okay. So my favorite coffee drink is right now, it's a hot Americano with splash of milk, dash of cinnamon. Such a good combo if you don't want something heavy, but want something with a little bit more spice. Favorite drink we serve someone. I will say right now, our most popular drink has been like our Valentine's drinks. It's a white chocolate raspberry and a dark chocolate blackberry mochas. Those have been huge hits, and I really like those if I want something sweet. So those have been fun to make for everybody.
Those sound amazing. That sounds so good. So
thank you.
Yes. So, if people can want to come out to your coffee truck or find you online or wherever, like if they're in Virginia and they want to go see, or like travel to go see your coffee truck, where can they find your truck and find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So we post our schedule every week or every month, depending on what season it is, on Sundays. And it's available on our website, which is twosisterscoffeeco.com, our Facebook, Two Sisters Coffee Co., and then our Instagram, twosisterscoffee.co. So be sure to check it out. We are really good and consistent in posting our hours and locations. So it will always be updated.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Nice.
And we will talk to you soon.
Yes. Thanks for having me, Noah.
Of course.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rest of Us podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider leaving a rating or review on the podcasting platform of your choice. It really helps me see that you are enjoying the episode and also helps other people see the podcast. Also, please consider giving a follow on social media. All the links will be in the show notes down below. Also, in the show notes, there is a link to the Rest of Us newsletter. This is a platform where I'll send out different takeaways from the episode, resources that were mentioned in the episode, and also notifications about new episodes. So make sure you click the link to subscribe there. So episodes are released weekly, and I will see you then on the next episode of the Rest of Us podcast.